Business Focus with Kudzi Sharara on the champion.
Right here on Capi Talk 100.4 FM Harare Sahatbita. And we discuss a lot of what's happening in the world of business as always with Kudzi Sharara. Good morning, Kudzi. How are you today?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, everyone.
Great. All right, Kudzi, let's begin with the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange trading update for yesterday.
Thank you, Tinashe. Yeah, it was a good day yesterday for stocks, with the all-share index putting on 3.41%. The top 10 index adding 2.59%. Top risers for the day, Mashonaland Holdings putting on 14.54%. Tanganda adding 13.8%. We'll talk about Tanganda later on. NMB adding 13.66%. FBC putting on 10.34%, and BAT up by 10%. On the downside, the biggest loser was OK Zimbabwe, down by 9.61%. ZB Financial Holdings losing 5.77%. ART dropping 0.09%. Ariston easing 0.04%. Investors, most investors put their money into Delta, about 36.2 million ZiG worth of shares changing hands there in Delta. Also, Econet, about 5.9 million ZiG worth of shares changing hands there. BAT, 1.8 million, and then Masimba and Sitco also getting a sizable chunk of the funds that were invested in other instruments that are listed on the ZSE. So the Old Mutual ZSE Top 10 ETF putting on a good 11.75%, and then the rate, that's the Revitas rate, which is owned by NRZ Pension Fund, remained stable at 104 cents, and then Tigere rate recovered by 1.17% to 137.58 cents. And then on the VFEX, it came off by 0.45%, with losses in Axia down by 4.8%, Insco down by 4.05%, Padenga losing 0.44%, and Zimplow down by 1.45%, dragging the market lower. The gains were recorded, however, in African Sun, Caledonia, First Capital Bank, and Simpisa Brands, but not enough to turn the tide there for the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. Not much money changed hands there, just about $3,999 changing hands on the VFEX compared to the previous days, 552,000. So that's a massive drop there, from 552,000 to just 3,999. So that's how the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange traded. And earlier on, I hinted that to talk about Tanganda later on. So Tanganda has decided to move from the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange to be listed on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange.
Just before you get into I was actually thinking of a question to ask you. Between the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange and the VFEX, which of the trading platforms is doing well between the two?
There is no doubt the ZSE is much better, because when you look at that all-share index, since the beginning of the year, up by 190%. Right, and then you do your currency depreciation, you factor in currency depreciation, and then you also factor in inflation. I think the ZSE will still be more than 50% positive in US dollar terms. But when you look at the VFEX, since the beginning of the year, it's only up by 4.54%. So I would say the ZSE has done well. If you look at some of the counters on the ZSE, they've really done well, given their investors value for money. You look at Mashonaland Holdings, since the beginning of the year, it has gained by 1,216%. So even if you factor in the currency depreciation, if you factor in the inflation, it's still way in the positive territory. So good returns there for Mashonaland Holdings. You look at Unifreight, up by 861%, ART 580%, FBC 543%, CBZ 351%. So I would say the ZSE has done much better than the VFEX.
But at the same time, we're seeing Tanganda moving from ZSE to the VFEX.
Yes, so they are moving from the ZSE to the VFEX. You know, the VFEX also offers companies some incentives that are not found on the that are not found on the Victoria Falls, that are not found on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. And also, as they move to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, they want to raise capital, about $7.7 million through a renounceable rights offer. So a renounceable rights offer is where the company says to its current shareholders, okay, we want to raise 7.7 million. You can follow your rights, and then if there are any rights that are not followed, then an underwriter might take those shares. So this is the company saying we are moving to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, but whilst we are there, we also want to raise $7.7 million. So you on the VFEX, yes, some you could raise capital on the US dollar capital on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, but they've decided they are yet to issue a full circular to shareholders to really see the rationale for them to do that. Why are they doing it? So they will issue a circular to shareholders, and then it will go for an shareholder approval at an extra general meeting, an EGM. So full details are yet to come, giving us the reason why the company has decided. I remember when they were listing on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, other companies had already started to move to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, and I remember saying to myself, why are they listing on the ZSE? They are mostly an export company. You know, Tanganda, most of their products, they've got products that they sell on the domestic market, but they also export tea, avocados, macadamia, and other products that they export. So I was like, they are generating export. They will be able to meet the requirements of the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, but they ended up listing on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. And I remember asking one of the brokers, and they said, no, it's because of the issue of liquidity. So when you're on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, it's very easy to sell your shares or buy shares into the company. But when you are on the VFEX, it's not yet liquid enough. It's not yet trading frequently as you would want. But this is what they've decided. In the coming weeks, we should be able to get more information in terms of the rationale why they are going there.
So could they probably I'm asking on behalf of probably a shareholder of Tanganda. Anenge akatenga mashares ake eTanganda ku ZSE ari our local currency, right? Now it's moving to the VFEX where they are trading in US dollars. Zvinoreva kwandiri as a shareholder ndakatenga neZimbabwean currency.
Zvakureva kuti mashares awakatenga iwewe nezig, right? Or nezim dollar. Some of you might have bought way back. It means that now you can sell those shares. You can dispose of those shares in US dollars. So you now have a Zim dollar asset that you bought with your local currency, but you will now be able to enjoy US dollar when you finally decide to sell. So that's I'm actually yesterday the counter actually went up. That's why it's one of the top 5 risers. So someone is saying, okay, I've got ZIG, right, and I've got I want to convert this ZIG into US dollars. What a way of doing it. Just buy shares, Tanganda shares, and then a few months once they list on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, your ZIG is now in US dollars. Remember that US dollars are not easy to get by. You can't get them on the interbank market to say, no, I want some US dollars to buy shares or for store of value. You can't do that. So, and you can't on the black market, it's illegal. So this is a way of buying a US dollar asset using ZIG. Okay. So that will be interesting. I foresee this counter just going up for the next couple of days. It will be going up as people try to buy into a US dollar asset. However, what we have seen over the period, that's why it's also you see the VFEX is not performing as much as the ZSE. Why? Because when these counters were moving to the VFEX, they were pushed, some of them to the extent that they were overvalued. And then when they went to the VFEX, they got their true value on the VFEX now. And some of them had to come off to get to their true value because they had been overbought whilst they were still trading on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange.
All right, just before we move on to the next subject, could see there's a question here from Azuba Cooper in Greendale who say, how do companies on stock exchange benefit financially from trading of shares on stock exchanges? Can proceeds from daily sales be used as working capital?
No. Once a company, so when companies list, right, they normally list through, well, there are many methods, but the first one is called an initial public offering, an IPO, initial public offering, the financial term of the day.
Yeah.
Initial public
IPO.
offering, yes. So what they are issuing their shares to the public for the very first time, let's say on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange or on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. They normally do that to raise capital So they are saying, I want to expand my business. I don't want to go and get a loan from the bank. So I'm coming to other people to say, guys, I own this company 100%, but I'm willing to let go, let's say 70% of this company and sell it to you in exchange of capital. Once you give me that money, I'm going to inject it into the business so that we can expand the business. We can bring in new material, raw material, new equipment and stuff like that. So that's an initial public offering. Some others, they list by way of introduction where they don't want to raise capital. It's also allowed. And then, as in this case, for example, Tanganda wants to raise capital. They are going to do what is known as a rights offer. Another financial term, a rights offer is where the company is saying to its shareholders, you have got the right to follow your shareholding. Because, for example, if I'm selling more shares, if I have issued 100 shares before and I'm now wanting to issue another 100 shares, it means there will be dilution. So I'm saying if you want to maintain your shareholding, you have to follow your shares by subscribing to this rights offer. So this is what Tanganda, so that's the benefit. But once these companies have listed, there is no benefit from the trading of the shares. It's now a shareholder affair. It's now between shareholders. One shareholder selling, another one buying and becoming a shareholder. The company does not benefit. The company will only benefit once they want to raise more capital through the exchange or on the first time. However, there are many other benefits of being listed. Remember that also it's actually a plus for you to be listed because we know that there are rules and regulations, the listing requirements that you have to be followed when you are listed on a stock exchange. It means that your books, in most cases, although I know they are in some cases there's some fraudulent activities might take place even when a company is listed, but there are better chances that the books of this company have been scrutinized enough, and once you go out there, you look looking for a loan or whatever, or you want to sell the business, people are saying, no, it was listed, so it means its books must be clean, right? So there are many advantages. Also, your brand. Imagine we are talking about these companies here. Those that are not listed, we are not talking about them because they are not public companies. But if you're a public company, we are talking about your numbers. We are talking about your...
Because it's in the public.
It's in the public. And again, your brand is out there. We are talking about your brand. We are talking about Tanganda as we speak. So those are some of the benefits of being a listed company.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, just briefly, because our time is running out, Kudzi, just about 9 minutes before we go. Let's look at there's a saga that's going on with Mikkels. What's going on?
Yeah, the Mikkels saga. So what happened is that a few days last week or so, remember we said that the Mikkels had appointed Matthew Moxon, the son of John Moxon, as the CEO, and they had fired the previous one, who is Malcolm Mycroft, who was the CEO. And he reverted back to being the MD of TM, the head of TM Pick and Pay. Okay. So, and we thought it was above board, and people were actually saying, this is a dynasty company because Moxon is leaving the company to his own son and things like that. But now, John Moxon Sr. has come out and said, whatever happened during that board meeting was not procedural. So he's actually saying, no, the appointment of his son was not procedural. Yes, and it was irregular. He should not have been appointed. And he's even saying that you want to jeopardize the relationship that is there between Pick and Pay and TM. And remember, Pick and Pay, part of it is owned by South African Pick and Pay. And he's saying by firing Malcolm Mycroft, you're actually jeopardizing the relationship that is there between Pick and Pay.
So this is the father who is saying, Ngonongo doesn't deserve to be there.
Yes, so it seems like it was a coup, a corporate coup, where the son wanted to dislodge the father, but the father has come guns blazing and say that was highly irregular, and says that he's now they are now some of the directors that were there, they are now up for, they might be fired, the directors that took part during that meeting that saw Mycroft being relieved of his duties. So that's an interesting one.
We'll keep following up on that one. All right, let's move on to something else, Kudzi. So the recently ended ZANU-PF annual National People's Conference in Bulawayo. There were resolutions that came out. Are there some resolutions that have got an impact on the economy?
Yes, so there are actually several resolutions that that were made there that have got an impact on the economy. They touched on mining, especially illegal mining, which they said there is need for authorities to enforce the ban on riverbed mining and also accelerate river desiltation program through the cancellation of mining licenses and environmental permits, including confiscation of mining equipment in this area. So they're saying, no, guys, we can't continue to do what we are doing, riverbed mining, and I think this is a good resolution. Hopefully it can be followed through in terms of making sure that we stop this practice because it's damaging the environment. So kudos to ZANU-PF for doing that. They also spoke about infrastructure. You talk about dams, roads, irrigation and rail, and they said we want more of these. And I think any Zimbabwean would want more of that.
Yeah, of course.
But I think the question is on the funding, because the funding model that we've been using in the past has come with consequences. Some of the currency depreciation that we are talking about, some of the inflation numbers that we talk about, it's because of the way we were funding these infrastructure projects. So I think they started to do it differently. If you look at how they structured the Bulawayo Victoria Falls Road, where it's a build-operate kind of arrangement where Buteman, I think, has been awarded. They'll build and operate and then hand over once they've recouped their money and some profits, I think. So that's the model that you might want. I think they are doing the same in other areas. So that's another resolution to say we want more of infrastructure spend. And then they also spoke on ZIG. And they said that there is need for robust measures to strengthen the purchasing power of ZIG and entrench its usage. They also said government must expedite efforts to de-dollarize the economy and promote the use of the ZIG as the country's sole currency, as well as synchronization of fiscal and monetary policies. So I think it's good to see that a political party is looking at these resolutions and wanting to do better with that. They also spoke about the need to improve the ease and cost of doing business. They spoke about startup funds and business cost, capitalization of the venture capital fund to support my startups. So the party also wants comprehensive policies to realize the formalization of the informal sector through the enforcement of appropriate laws. So the laws are there, but they are not being enforced. Okay. So this is what the party is saying. No, guys, let's enforce these laws.
Stamping authority now.
Yes, stamp authority. So that's what the party is saying. Hopefully those in government will listen and implement some of these resolutions. They also had resolutions on the debt and land to make sure that we pay our debts and also expedite the issuance of those land tenure so that our farmers can then unlock value on the land. So these are some of the resolutions. So yeah, it was very I think on the economic side, I think I wouldn't feel shortchanged, and I'm happy with all the resolutions. I think they are also, I would agree with all the resolutions that they have made. In fact, the ones that we have spoken about, I agree with them, because there are some that I haven't looked at, the political ones and the like. But these ones on the economic side, I think I agree with them 100%, and hopefully government will take action.
We wait and see. All right, 3 minutes up before 8 a.m. is our time on Business Focus right here on Capi Talk. Post-cabinet briefing yesterday.
Yeah, so post-cabinet briefing, maybe an interesting one is the Build Better. You know, Mbare, after the fire that destroyed Mbare and left about more than close to 5,000 people. So there were resolutions that were made in cabinet, and one of them is that they are going to build a 3-floor model design, which is being proposed at the Mbare Msika Trade Market, whereby business will be classified and accommodated on the 3 levels. So they want to do a three floor And I saw a lot of people saying, kumbara hazvitomboite mukaise maflows, you know, ndatoona kuti saka mazimbabwe zitori neproblem toda kubatirira ichocho old model chiri pecho ndo chinoda kubatirwa.
Imagine having a ground floor ndoinita things zvechivanhu woenda pamusoro
yeah, but I would say ava vezviri heavy like ma fruits and vegetables
go down
ndo vari pasi because zviri heavy,
yeah.
But vaya vanga vachitengesa bute uenda kumusoro because zvichingodaro vanga vachitengesa mauniform vachiendawo nechokumusoro vanotengesawo zviri heavy ndo votengesera background floor. I think for me it's a good
but I
idea.
think it's actually a good move because we are modernizing the market system,
and we have seen it in other countries. That's how it is. It's well organized, but nezuro ndakaona mune rimwe group vanhu vachitopopota kuti aiwa.
But do you also feel good? Remember we have spoken about issues where revenue leakages. Is this a way we then say kuti munhu ukanaona table yako ne-tax clearance yako wakubhadharawo tax and what could that be the way we're going?
Yes, it's an easier way of handling payments of tax. Munongoisa kana zvimaloka zvongoti kana usina kubhadhara loku ndinaro zvamunongoita muchiclaimba mota mutauni
just like mamo esari mutauni
kana usina kungobhadhara wotongo hapavhurwi handiti wobhadhara tax yako. It's easy, and it's also easy because makungoisa munhu anotogara ipapo handiti ano your tax collector wezimu rangona kutonzi gara ipapapo handiti
plus inenge
office yawo ipapapo
CCTV yapo homwe dzetsingorowa
smart, they're calling it smart something they're calling it smart market concept. Smart market concept. So I think let's bring in technology in the way we sell our vegetables, our tomatoes.
Okay, all right. Let's hold it for Business Focus for today right here on Capital Kudzi. We discuss more tomorrow. Thank you so much for the day.
Thank you, Tinashe.
Business Focus with Kudzi Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.